Nice Radio Kalulu presents Just Another Look. Just Another Look is an innovative, exciting, albeit decidedly provocative and yes, certainly controversial, socio-political analysis of issues of a local, regional, and international nature. Just Another Look is heard only on Nice Radio. First aired on Saturdays at 6 p.m. with repeat broadcasts on Sundays at 9 p.m. You can always catch us on the World Wide Web, www.niceradio.info. Remember, we are also on Facebook and YouTube. I am, of course, Keith. Today, dear friends, is Saturday. It is the 8th day of October 2022. Welcome to another edition of your favorite program, Just Another Look. Over the past several weeks, dear friends, we have taken the time and continue to take the time here at Just Another Look to point out just how sick our society, the Vincent and the Grenadines, has become. It is not just about the murders. It is not just about crime. It's not just about our education system. It is not just about the problems confronting our fisher folk, those in agriculture. It is not just about health. It is about everything. And it is about all of us. We live in a society today that clearly has lost the art of caring. We live in what we like to refer to here as just another look, as a sort of benevolent dictatorship. Because one is amazed, disappointed, sickened to the core by what we are seeing around us globally. We look at the pathetic nature of the war in Ukraine. We look at the conduct of world leaders. We have watched the nation that has been for many years the bastion of democracy, or so it sold itself, the USA, descend into a quagmire that challenges the very fundamentals of what we have known as democracy. And yet, in the midst of all that has happened, we can have a prime minister, dubbed by some as the education prime minister, returning from the United Nations, where there's been rampant condemnation of the Russians' behavior in Ukraine. When he returns, and there is a suggestion that we can now get more scholarships for our students to study in Russia. It's a sort of, it's the kind of thing that you would normally associate with people who have lost their marbles kind of thing. But as a leader of the country St. Vincent and the Grenadines could, at this juncture, where Russians are leaving Russia, military personnel from Russia are running away from their military positions, that we may well be contemplating asking Vincentians, would you like to go to Russia to study? Isn't that amazing? That you could even talk that garbage as the world spurns just about everything that Vladimir Putin and his leadership cadre are currently doing. It's one thing for us to be adopting a political, ideological position of scientific Marxist-Leninism. But there is no way that one can believe that that is what is being applied by Vladimir Putin. One of the fundamental differences between what Putin is doing in Russia and what we're seeing in North Korea. But it's interesting because remember that Donald Trump, as President of the United States, on his first trip, his first meeting with the North Korean leader, talked about, it's fantastic, such a young man, controlling a whole nation in the way in which he's doing it. He seemed to have been taken aback at being in the presence of a dictator. Small wonder then that when the President Xi in China was written into the country's constitution as leader for life, perhaps being seen as the one that, after the Chairman Mao, him. And again, there was this admiration, this concern about, imagine being a leader for life. And his admiration for Putin. The man who is sitting in a country that sells itself as the best example of democracy was taken in by dictators. And just another look keeps asking, had we not the relationship that allows us to literally milk Taiwan for just about everything that we want? You listen to the Chinese ambassador, the Taiwanese ambassador, and he can chronicle the major projects that they have been involved with in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We're milking them in a way in which we believe will enhance our position economically. There isn't anything we probably haven't asked them for just yet. But we seem to be getting there. And you heard the ambassador himself repeat it about their satisfaction with our returns. We are in fact encouraging the membership of this entity, the membership of that entity. We are defending the cause of Taiwan everywhere. And one wonders, had we not, in 2001, had the Unity Labour Party government not inherited a $52+ million sitting in the Treasury, although the Prime Minister said he got a bad hand, had that money not been there, money that was put aside for a number of projects, including at the time the library. Remember, that's the money we use very early to do a number of things, despite saying we got a bad hand. And in spite of knowing that Adam Eustace, in the short period he was there, refused the request from his ministers to try to prepare an elections budget. He felt that it was not fair to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines that they utilize their resources that way. So we have become a sort of willing surrogate of Taiwan because of what we can get from Taiwan. And in return, every international forum we have, we make a case for Taiwan. So when you listen to the ambassador on the eve of their 10/10 celebration, you're compelled to an understanding and an appreciation of the nature of that political relationship. We call it international relations. We call it international diplomacy. What it is you scratch my back and I scratch your back. Plain and simple. That is what it is. Politics is not something mysterious, Politics is about power relations. It is about decision making. And so you can, as some prime ministers and presidents do, pat yourself on the back for being a self-styled quote-unquote good politician, when in truth and in fact, you're little more than a dictator outright, or sometimes a benevolent dictator, because you're selling to the nation the impression that you are so interested in their well-being that you are getting things for them, and they must know that you are the ones getting it for them, because only you can do that. And in return, you expect their pledged loyalty forever and ever, ad infinitum. But to contemplate in this day and age, in the current circumstance in Ukraine, to be talking about more scholarships for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, is to fly in the face of good sense. It is to fly in the face of good sense. You see, you want to have an understanding of, why would you come back? As Eyewitness News stated in its article on the 4th of October, Moscow is offering more university scholarships to Vincentians who want to pursue university degrees. And they say Gonzalez said that this was the central bilateral issue among a wide-ranging discussion that he held with Russia Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at the United Nations last month. This is Eyewitness News dated 4th October. And he's saying, in a tweet on its official Twitter account on September 26th, Russia's Foreign Minister of Foreign Affairs said that Gonzalez and Lavrov emphasized their consistent rejection of the practice of using unilateral sanctions that violate international legal standards. Gonzalez is quoted as saying, different people react differently to the security issues as they are perceived. As they are perceived. Yeah? And he says during their discussions, Lavrov explained, quote, basically the position which I know. I have read about it. I have read the speeches of President Putin. I have seen interviews by Mr. Lavrov. In this document, He appears to hedge away from saying directly that Vincentian should accept the scholarships. But he's saying that they're on offer. They're on offer. And he knows the situation in Russia, you see, because he's an international politician. He knows the situation in Russia. Just like he knew the situation in Libya when he went there. But as soon as the tables turned on Libya, he never mentioned Gaddafi's name again until after he died. He knew and he knows just about everything. Because he reads things differently. And there is this sense in which he continues to parade himself as a super intellectual politician that understands the global politics so well that he'd probably think and suggest that that may well be why he got St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the Security Council of the United Nations. And tell us the benefits of that. And the kind of cloak and dagger thing that he likes, that allows him to say, for example, I've met with the leadership in the police about these murders, and you will know it when you see it. You'll know it when you see it. It's a sort of cloak and dagger thing to suggest to the average Vincentian that I know about security. Watch me. It's the same way I know about international politics. Watch me. I could handle this thing between Venezuela and the United States and exchange, etc. Watch me. I am on the big stage, guys. You guys don't understand. I'm not just big in size. I'm big generally in terms of our international positioning. I am that big. So now Lavrov is his friend. Yes. So he knows the position. He doesn't have to go there. He knows. Because he reads more than all of us. So he knows. And consequently, hey, listen to this section. We have more scholarships. You want? We can send you to Russia. Because Russia is offering scholarships. Do not worry your head about what you are reading. Because you're reading something different. Go to Russia now and study. Send your children to Russia to study because scholarships are available. Click your finger and say yes, and you'll be there in a flash. Yeah? The same nation that's talking about use of nuclear weapons on a regular basis. But don't worry about that. That is Western propaganda. That's Western propaganda. Don't worry about that. It is as if all I have to do is to call Putin, and don't worry, he keep you safe, even if there's the use of nuclear weapons. Don't worry, because I say so. That's how big I am. I say so. Isn't that the way you're supposed to interpret this? It is not about the well-being of Vincentian society as much as it appears to be the well-being of Ralph Gonsalves. Maybe it might be the content for another book that nobody reads. So here we are. We can call of all these things. And we can regurgitate history. And give a suggestion or a hint that we are interpreting it differently from everybody else because we're bright. We're big and we're bright. There's no consideration really for the views of others. Does it appear so to you? Does it appear so to you? While we are being told all sorts of things of Taiwan, you heard it yourself. The Taiwanese ambassador on the eve of the latest celebration says, We appreciate what St. Vincent and the Grenadines does for us. They go all over the world and make our case for us. They're highly supportive of us. And we can say from our vantage point, and hence, we contribute to the airport, make the terminal, contribute to the bridge across the Dry River. We're contributing to the Marriott. We contribute to the hospital, and we contribute to everything. But you know, sometimes you have to stop and think. Because they had contributed to the asparagus project. What has happened to that again? They had contributed to a project to grow hill rice. What has happened to that again? In other words, our understanding of our education system should commit us to critical thinking. Don't just tell me about the things that you have done and we have done for you. Tell me, have you engaged in any sort of monitoring and evaluation that allows us at the end of the day to say what has been beneficial, what has worked for the well-being of our country, as opposed to what have not. We cannot just pretend, as Porter say, that we have forgotten how to speak up. We cannot pretend that what does it benefit us if we continue to ignore our own education processes. One man not bright enough to control all of us. But that doesn't prevent that man from thinking that he can. So if you look at the news on different media, it is all about explaining and over-explaining. Yeah? So we explain what is happening with the war. We explain, about the King Charles. We explain, the global implications of the war in Ukraine and blah 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 blah. We that is the best explainer that the country has had politically. And somehow, mirror, mirror on the wall, keep giving him the answers he wants to hear. And that is unfortunate for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because it does not allow for the contention of ideas of others in the development of the society. Because I keep maintaining on this program that Gonzales can go about and say whatever he wants. Had it not been for Julian Francis, Ralph would not have been in political office today. Had it not been for Julian Francis, the ULP would not have been so well positioned as a result of Julian Francis and his A-team's work in April, May of 2000 with the roadblocks. Julian never called it no revolution. Julian simply said he did what he thought was necessary in order for them to make the demonstrations a success. It wasn't ULP demonstrations to start with, but it ended up looking that way. Yes? Hey, Julian that coined roadblock revolution, because the master can turn around and name anything a revolution that he feels like. So he has an education revolution. He had a roadblock revolution. He called for a wellness revolution, which doesn't seem to impact him at all. It's supposed to be for everybody else. So he defines as he goes along. But to come back and tell us in the midst of what people know, not you, not the only person reading, you're not the only person that know what is going on in the rest of the international community, to come back and talk about more scholarship being offered. They could offer what they want, but you ought to have been able to say for and on behalf of the Vincentian Society, not now, sir. Don't bring that topic up now. Not now. You know the situation. But we cannot go around the world like beggar maids. We cannot make people believe that we are so lacking in intelligence that we can endorse just about anything everybody says everywhere we go. Because at the end of the day, it may give us some additional resources. So we don't care who we take money from. We don't care who we take scholarships from. Remember we once were talking about sending people to Iran to study? How many Vincentians took up those scholarships? What has happened to the array of scholarships we were getting or supposed to have been getting from Mexico? Some did go, or what has happened to that project? You see, the issue is that we have a leadership that appears to be so inured with itself that every one of its projects can be sold, marketed to the Vincentian people, and we just accept it. Because we have this sense that on the one hand we are talking an education revolution, but we are hoping that the people, or we appear to be hoping, that we don't get educated. Because if you get educated, you must necessarily apply your critical thinking skills. You must think for yourself, and critically so. You don't have always to be condemnative, but at least you know that you have that right to think critically and to venture an opinion on just about anything that impacts your life. You can't be always hoping that we forget. That's why we make mention of the cross-country road. Because it seems as though they're hoping that we forgot. We've forgotten that that was a project. So every time the people raise up about something, we bury it. That's why we're not hearing about any integrity legislation. That's why we're not hearing about the eco-tourism hotel that was supposed to be built across the Dry River. So we spin things around in the hope that people will not remember what you have not done, what you have not done well. That is one of the reasons why we can say without fear of contradiction that we are a sick society. Too many things are going wrong. And there is this politics of distraction that seems to suggest that do not focus on the things that are going wrong. Just focus on what we tell you are the things that are important to you now. And so the benevolent dictatorship just allows for you to determine this is not right, this ain't gonna happen, this would be one person making all those decisions. Or so it comes across. You see, there are those who will always show themselves to be adept at what can only be described as the politics of distraction. The politics of distraction. And unfortunately, those who are adept at that also know that no amount of distraction politics can change the price of eggs, as the old people say. Vincentian society remains ill. And it is getting worse. It is getting worse. You know, in the recent past, we've had the announcement that David Ames, remember him? Ames of Buckingham Bay Resort, man. is it fame or infamy, has earned himself some jail time. He ain't get no jail here. He didn't get any jail here. You tried to have a few months pass without paying your water bill or electricity bill and see how fast the authorities come and cut you off. But he was able here to accumulate millions of dollars in debt for utility companies. And then we say, after he went away in a speedboat, we say that he's wanted here. Who did we go to ask for Ames to come back here? Did we really make any effort to try to get Ames to come back here to stand trial for what he's wanted for? Did we make any effort? Where are the evidence that we made that effort? So we know where Ames is. We've always known where he is. So why when the issue of Ames and Bocamen Bay Resort come up, we pretended as though we didn't know, and we keep it on the books, quote unquote, that he's wanted in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Yeah, right. You couldn't get away as an average Vincentian with 100 of the debt that he ran up with our utility company. But he did. He did. Yeah. But it was not a popular topic. Because, remember, we don't do citizenship by investment, So why are people talking about Ames being a naturalized Vincentian? You hear the response of the explainer? He does not have a Vincentian passport. That is the explainer general. The explainer general. He does not have a Vincent. What does that have to do with anything? That is the epitome of distractive politics. The focus of attention of the average Vincentian is what Ames was able to accomplish utilizing St. Vincent and the Grenadines as a base. That is the area of contention. Don't distract us. Don't distract us. The area of focus is that he was able to come here and do these things. You see, that announcement of Ames's jail sentence in the United Kingdom is not a surprise to anybody who was following the situation. The same way that the comrade could say, he knows what is happening in Russia. He knows the truth. A lot of people in this country knew the truth and know the truth about the Ames project. So don't distract us now. We're talking about he didn't have a Vincentian passport. Don't distract us with that. You see, Vincentians were being given the impression that the Bocamen Bay Resort introduced by Ames was going to be a flagship component of our new tourism thrust under the ULP government. Remember, the government was supposed to be transformative. It was bringing on board a new dispensation. Well, that was part of the new dispensation. Those who had ears and used them to listen would readily recall that at one point, when we were engaging ourselves in the procurement of what we here labeled goat hook matches that were essentially warm-up matches, not competitive matches, warm-up matches for the Cricket World Cup 2007. We were told that the expectation was that some of the visitors we anticipated would be rushing to see Gold Coast matches would be probably be staying at Bocamen Bay Resort. That's how proud we were of this project. Of course, you know that didn't happen. You know that didn't happen. Because we were being told that the way things were going with this flagship project, we would have had rooms on offer in time for the 2007 Gold Coast matches that we were going to host. But that didn't happen. We didn't have rooms for anybody to stay there in 2007. But in 2010, on the 31st of March, svgblog.blogspot.com carried an article by SVG Today correspondent. And it stated in part, quote, over 1,000 workers are currently employed at the Bocamen Bay Resort construction site. And over 100 million US has already been spent on the construction. And the article says that's according to Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, who added that because of the amount of workers, the Bocamen Bay Resort is the single largest construction site in the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. When completed, the resort would be worth over $250 million US. That's what was carried on svgblog.blogspot.com. The same article says, and this is 31st March 2010, same article says, on Friday, while addressing the workers at the Bocamen Bay Resort construction site during a tour of the area, the Prime Minister told the gathering that Canouan has about 1,000 workers, but they are in the hotels and construction companies, while Mustique has about another 1,000, also in hotels and in just over 100 private homes. Quote, there is no construction site anywhere ever in this country that you have such a large number of workers being employed one and at the same time, stressed Gonsalves. You understand? So in 2010, all seemed fine and dandy with Gonsalves and Ames's project, the construction of the Bocamen Bay Resort. Here we were, lauding the project. It's a game changer. So the foregoing quotation, friends, appears to suggest that Gonsalves had apparently been sold lock, stock, and barrel on the project. But the article continued, quote, he, meaning Gonsalves, recalled persons were against the project and had labeled it a phantom project, meaning it does not exist. However, Gonsalves reasoned that the activity ongoing at Bokament is a project, and they're quoting Ralph here, which is the consequence of the initiative of some skilled entrepreneurs and managers and the foresight and the collaboration in practical ways by the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. End of quote. So you all could call it a phantom project if you want. But as far as Gonzales was concerned, the Bokament Bay Resort project was a consequence of the initiative of some skilled entrepreneurs and managers and the foresight and collaboration in practical ways by the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The skilled entrepreneurs, in truth, because Ames was skilled enough to get away, or to think he would have gotten away with the fraud that he was involved in. The British courts thought otherwise, and they just put him away for a little while. But we appeared to have been impressed because they were skilled entrepreneurs and managers. You know, in a sense, is history repeating itself, you know? Because we were being sold some same things some years ago about Valdetaro and the Utley Hall shipyard. Do you remember that? And you remember how Gonzales and others were eager to utilize that as political fodder in their attempt to unseat the New Democratic Party in government. And it is on the basis of that thinking that once in government, the ULP administration embarked on a commission of inquiry into the failed Utley Hall project. Assuming, perhaps, that it was an evidence of high-level corruption, white-collar criminality under the New Democratic Party administration. So there's a recognition, or a claim at least, that the NDP government was duped into getting itself involved, mired in the controversy. That was the Utley Hall Shipyard and Marina project. And so upon assuming office, they started a commission of inquiry. Perhaps they thought too that they might have somehow been able to link Animusis with the project. He was never involved in it. To the white-collar criminality angle that appeared to have been part and parcel of the whole desire to investigate, inquire into it, went AWOL once the chair of the commission submitted an interim report where Mitchell had not yet even been called to discuss anything, had concluded already that Mitchell was responsible for some grand scheme. Mitchell spent the next several years clearing his name. Couldn't do that under our jurisprudence in the Eastern Caribbean, and had to find his way to the Privy Council that we condemned so heavily, who took little or no time to produce justice, which we couldn't do apparently in our little cocoon of the Eastern Caribbean. And yet we want people to have confidence in our jurisprudence. But if you don't have money, just like you have problems with your health, if you don't have money, you have difficulty finding justice. If you ain't rich and white, and you have difficulty finding justice. That's what we're saying around these islands. Because it seems as though the poor will always find things that much more difficult to access justice and fair play. You can't owe CWSC and VINLEC any set of money before they cut you off. AIMS left here owing the country millions. How was that allowed to happen? But we were so anxious about this project that the Prime Minister is quoted here that the project is not, as some people condemn it, a phantom project. It is the consequence of the initiative of some skilled entrepreneurs and managers. Of course they were skilled. They were ripping off people, so they must be deemed skilled. And we appeared to have admired them because they facilitated the foresight and the collaboration in practical ways of the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Well, leave the people out of that. Just say the government. Leave the people out of that. You see, it certainly would appear in hindsight that Gonzalez, in his usual ebullient manner, was eager to laud his government's achievement in getting into the good graces of the likes of AIMS and his ilk, the so-called skilled entrepreneurs and managers involved in the project. So don't worry, it's not a phantom project. It is real, and we are involved. That's what essentially was coming out here. Little did the average Vincentian know at the time that the Bocaman Bay Resort was not a phantom project, but rather, as has been proven in court, part of a major scheme by AIMS. In essence, it was a means to an end that now has made AIMS committed to a jail sentence. One is forced to ask, therefore, if one applies one's critical thinking skills, whether the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines had done any due diligence before we appeared to so eagerly embrace AIMS. Remember, you read and you know about Putin and Russia. You know the whole story about Ukraine and Russia's involvement there. You know the whole story. You know the whole shebang about Venezuela and Maduro and Chavez. You know all of that. You didn't know that AIMS was a scam. You didn't know that AIMS was facilitating a grandiose scheme. If you knew all that you claim to have known about the Otley Hall Maria project and Valdetaro, etc., etc., how come you didn't have any suspicion at all about AIMS? Did we do any due diligence on AIMS? Remember, you say, comrade, you're not into citizenship by investment. But we ask you here on Just Another Look, what exactly are we into? Because as far as we're concerned, what exactly we are into appears to be rather nebulous. Because try as you will, the matter of what has emerged with this AIMS project will forever serve as a black eye on your leadership. On your leadership of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. regarding your whole approach to the management of the Vincentian economy and foreign investment in our country. The same way that the Michel Andrews episode will forever be a black eye on your leadership, the same way the Ames tragedy will be a black eye on your management of the Vincentian economy and pursuit of foreign investment in our country. Is it that you were enthusiastic about your own image as a nation builder? Is it that may have enabled you to be quoted as referencing the foresight and collaboration in practical ways by the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines? In other words, you're suggesting that this was not a phantom project. We were involved because we had the foresight. And so we collaborated in practical ways to that project. So it can't be no phantom project because you're involved on behalf of the government. So you had foresight. But your foresight, unfortunately, did not allow you to see that Ames was into a scam. That's why sometimes you have to be careful about the things you say. Because with the kind of foresight, or perhaps we should say lack of foresight, that led us to embrace Ames and his project, one is therefore challenged in terms of trusting Gonzalez's judgment regarding projects of the sort that Ames led the country into accepting. Because if that was a result of your foresight, or your government's foresight under your leadership, because don't pull yourself out and say about the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you were leading us into that on behalf of the nation. So don't pull the rest of us into you. You were the one leading, as you do with most things. Okay? So the same article says, he, meaning Gonzalez, added that in July, remember this is March 2010, the intention is to open 350 rooms. You see, he know all about the project. All about the project. In July, the intention is to open 350 rooms. He forgot that some years before, we were supposed to have rooms for people coming to the Gold Cook matches in Cricket World Cup 2007. But when those things don't work out, he doesn't mention them. So now in 2010, he's saying, in July, the intention is to open 350 rooms. Not all that number will be starting with occupation, but they will be opened bit by bit over a short period of time while construction continues, the Prime Minister noted. The resort is expected to be completed in every dimension by 2012. And the group is also interested in constructing another project at Mount Wynn Peters Hope. So now you have an understanding. It wasn't any phantom project. Wasn't any phantom project. Here in March of 2010, the man is saying that the same Ames group not only interested in Bukament, the group is also interested in constructing another project at Mount Wynn Peters Hope. Remember later, we would sell land at Mount Wynn, at Peters Hope for $5 and something cents EC per square foot, eh? But Vincentians couldn't get that. You couldn't get it at that price. Or could you? So, one has an understanding that back then, in 2010 March, we were so much into the Ames and his group that we were able to have our Prime Minister make the declaration that the resort is while it's expected to be completed in every dimension by 2012, the group is also interested in constructing another project at Mount Windpeter's Hope. So what would have happened if that project had gone? What would have happened if it didn't go sour so early in Bukamen? Remember, we had a fight, where it appeared as though Bukamen Bay Resort was essentially closing off its place from Vincentians. Remember that time? When Arnim Eustace, as leader of the opposition, said, we will not stand for private beaches in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Remember that? So, we are in this situation where we cannot afford to allow it to pass their people. That we were anxious to be going after people for the Otley Hall Marina and Shipyard. And allowing this situation, this messy situation, where Scotland Yard had to come down to St. Vincent, where we had a session of the court, when the pensioners trying to find out what was happening got lawyers to take their case. It's years this case has been going on against Ames. So St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been in the news because it happened here. And we ask again, what due diligence did we engage in? Our erstwhile Minister of National Security, well, of course, he told us in the case of murders these days, you will know when you know, because you will see. I'm not talking about that. You will see what we have discussed at the highest level in national security. But we didn't get involved in this one, because they were entrepreneurs. They were skillful. So you have to recognize that it seems as though we missed or we dropped the ball on this one with Ames. Let's say the article then quotes Gonzalez. When they open the first phase, I will be able to talk to them about Peter's Hope. This is March of 2010, people. When they open the first phase, I will be able to talk to them about Peter's Hope. Yeah? And then they make reference to him saying that the resort was requiring some 450 persons to work when it opened. And that they already have bookings for over 1,000 persons who have paid to stay there. And then they quote him. We will have around 1,500 Vincentians employed. And when that happens, Bukama will be the second largest employer of labor after the government. And then we want to move on to Mount Windpeter's Hope. And then we want to move on to Mount Windpeter's Hope. Understand the planning with someone who just gets jailed here now, several years later, for a grand scheme. Much of it perpetrated right here on St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Vincentians were watching the resort being constructed. They watched the building. And when they went on the Harlequin website, they couldn't believe that what they saw on the Harlequin website was what was supposed to be built in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But if you said that, as many people did on call-in programs, you were condemned. You didn't want it. You call it a phantom project. We are involved. Can't be no phantom project. We're involved. Yeah? But you see, you have to understand the gift of gab. Right? Because remember he said, okay, that it was skilled entrepreneurs and managers. Skilled entrepreneurs and managers that were involved in this project. That's why it's not a phantom project. And also, because of the foresight and the collaboration in practical ways. That doesn't really tell us anything, eh? The foresight, that's why you tell you, move away the clutter. Move away the clutter. Move away the erudition. And you'll see it's emptiness. It's vacuous. There's nothing there. The foresight and the collaboration in practical ways by the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So here the man said, when it finished, we will then move on. Then we want to move on to Mount Win Peters Hoop. You see, PM is quoted. The big hotel was not brought here because nobody was brave and bold enough to start an international airport. So when people are against the international airport for narrow political reasons, I want you to know that down here, you would not have had a job if I did not start the international airport. Do you understand? The big hotel was not brought here because nobody was brave and bold enough to start an international airport. So when people are against the international airport for narrow political reasons, I want you to know that down here, you would not have had a job if I did not start the international airport. So when it is propitious, it is the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. When it is also propitious, it is I. I want you to know that down here you would not have had a job if I did not start the international airport. Because what? Because you're brave and bold enough to start an international airport. It is about him. That's why we talk about hubris. Ultimately, it is about him. So when they blow sharing for the Ames fracas, it is about him. No Russia say, and the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It is about you. But he's also referenced as saying that the builders of the resort are hoping to take a number of skilled workers to help build other projects in the Caribbean, and they will move as far as Nigeria. That is as silly as remember the time we came telling you about, he came from a meeting with Liat and announced that Liat contemplating buying jets and they may reach as far as Panama and Miami. Sometimes he said the damnedest things. Mouth open before full engagement of brain is what we would normally describe those things as. Mouth opening before full engagement of brain. Because we bought into this so much that we could say that they're planning to take Vincentians to carry them to build other Harlequin type projects. Because remember, Harlequin was supposed to be building in Barbados. Harlequin was supposed to be operating in the Dominican Republic. But here he's telling you, listen, if you do well enough, you could probably end up in Nigeria building something down there, You see, what we have just quoted from this document from March 2010 suggests the extent to which Gonzalez and his government appear to have been taken or fully taken into the project by Ames. That's what it suggests. It suggests that we were gullible enough and perhaps did not do enough due diligence to have allowed ourselves to be able to repeat this mumbo jumbo, which you now all know was a big scam. We've been repeating that. We've been laughing after people who, when they get a letter on the computer telling them just sign here and you'll receive so much, we laugh after them. But look, everybody laughing after us now, right? Because it's not a phantom project. But exactly what it was a grand scheme of deception. That's what it was. Because Gonzalez came across, as we just mentioned, almost as if he was gloating that he could have been able, as this country's prime minister, to achieve this other megalomania project. So the airport was the largest capital project. But this was going to be the biggest employer after government. This project that eventually failed. This project that he says, they criticize it for calling it a phantom project, but we are involved. You see, we want you to understand, dear listener, that in electoral politics, it would have been considered fair game to bolster the ULP's chances of being re-elected several times over if an unsuspecting electorate is convinced that Vincy's would be taken across the globe by investors et al. Because people want work. And if we can convince them that we are, you see, and we're doing the same thing, we are boasting that every time we talk now of Sandals, who's sitting on the same location and bought extra land. Every time we talk about them, we are emphasizing how many people are being employed. And they're being taken here to be trained. They're being taken there to be trained, etc., etc. And we make it appear as though we are part and parcel of the Sandals group. Because the way government officials associated with the project are speaking about it leaves people wondering, well, if this turns out to be another quote-unquote scheme, then we lock up again. We're back in the same khaki pants. But that is electoral politics. Ministers of government are anxious to stand by with projects once they believe that they will be viable enough to convince the electorate, you see, I did this. Vote for me. Vote for me because I did this. I put bread in your mouth. But they're not standing up by people, teachers and others, who are saying, well, come stand up next to me because you cut down my breadfruit tree. You cut down my breadfruit tree with your vaccination policy. So come stand up now to me now and tell people, I helped cut down your breadfruit tree. Say that publicly with me. I helped cut down their breadfruit tree. Hello? What's the difference? You want to come for something because you could stand up by Ames and them and rubbish, talk rubbish. But now that Ames lock up, all you're telling people is he hand over his pension passport. Right? In other words, what are you suggesting? We went far, but we didn't go that far. He ain't it's not that he didn't apply for it, right? He didn't bother with it, right? But if we leave March of 2010, people, follow the logic. We move from March of 2010 And we go to May of 2010. A hotel and tourism magazine, a website, hotelexecutive.com, carried an article headlined, Bocamen Bay Resort opens in St. Vincent. It is dated the 27th of May 2010. And it reads, and we quote, Bocamen Bay Resort announces its soft opening as the first luxury resort on the Caribbean island of St. Vincent. The 368-room resort will be the first from the new hotel brand, Harlequin Hotels and Resorts, and is positioned to redefine tourism on the island, creating massive sustainability and growth into the economy and its community. You didn't know that, right? That it was positioned to redefine tourism on the island. But it redefined tourism because it's been all over the British news and all over the world that the man who brought this project, a project that we readily bought into, just get 12 years. But the scam that was this project. This was part of the scam. But you may recall that at the time of the soft opening, Just Another Look highlighted its concern. Because soft openings always appear suspicious, almost as if someone has something to hide. In hindsight, we have found out what was perhaps being hidden. And some may also recall information coming out of Barbados at the time, where some went looking for the Harlequin Group project in that country, only to find an open lot of land with the investor's sign in a garbage bin. All of this was happening around us. We knew that was happening. Right next door in Barbados. The same Barbados that we always talking now because me and Motley and Ralph are friends. They were always friends. But look at it. Right next door. The same Harlequin people were having difficulties. And they couldn't get their project off the ground in Barbados. We knew that they were doing some work in Dominican Republic. We are continuing to ask, did we do due diligence? Or were we anxious to defend our quote-unquote collaboration and cooperation in practical ways? Because we had foresight. But we are saying in hindsight, it must have been already insightful coincidence that the sign in Barbados was found in a garbage bin. Because when you think of it, the project was heading into the garbage bin for some time. But the hotelexecutive.com article posted of the amenities that would have been put there and told everybody Harlequin Hotels and Resorts understands the impact of a large-scale resort development and has on a relatively small tourism industry, and is committed to being a responsible and considerate community partner by striving for a positive economic impact and supporting social development in St. Vincent. This will include a sustainability strategy involving sourcing local resources for building materials and food, maximizing energy efficiency, minimizing water waste and pollution, and reducing the carbon footprint made by transporting goods and guests within the resort. Harlequin will employ more than 700 people in the operation. Yeah? So, they were talking about minimizing water waste and pollution. But you remember, we had complaints about the inadequacy of sanitation in some respects. Remember that? And we asked about the plant that was supposed to be built on the property to eliminate that waste from going into our fishing waters, because they were next door to a fishing village. Yeah? So the promotion of the resort was that it would feature the Caribbean's most varied and respected sports facilities and activities. Okay? So, at the end of that article, this is what it says. Quote, it's the section about Harlequin Hotels and Resorts. It says, Harlequin Hotels and Resorts is creating luxury resorts in Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dominican Republic, and Brazil. Built to the highest specification and offering state-of-the-art facilities, the resorts will be managed and maintained to the highest standard by a 5-star hotel management team. So far, we only know one person gets jailed, and that is the James. So the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, dear friends, appears to have been only too eager to have this country's name included in the list of countries that were accommodating arrangements with Harlequin Hotels and Resorts. The large mover, because only some people have the foresight. But then let's come closer to home. On the 20th of August of the same year, 2010, Searchlight.vc News was headlined, Harlequin's Hotel and Resorts hold soft opening of Bocamen Bay. And the Searchlight of 20th August 2010 says, and we quote, Friday, August 13th, marked the dawn of a new era in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, when Harlequin Hotels and Resorts held a soft opening of the breathtaking 5-star Bocamen Bay Resort, Harlequin's first resort ever. To mark the special occasion, 38 guests, including children, arrived on board a Virgin Atlantic flight via St. Lucia from the United Kingdom. On Sunday, August 15th, the celebration continued with a further 31 guests arriving from the United Kingdom. And on that day, Prime Minister Dr. Raul Gonzalez and his wife Eloise Gonzalez visited the resort to take a tour of the exciting new resort. They joined Harlequin Property Chairman Dave Ames and his wife Carol Ames, the management team and the staff of the resort. End of quote. So we were hinting. We had a soft opening. You see, the problem that we have there is that politicians and politicians in the Caribbean operate with this seeming belief that the electorate does not pay attention to what the government does unless it affects them personally. Unless it affects them personally. So you recognize that some of the fisher folk, for example, who have been protesting, none of the anti-government, some of them may very well be government supporters. But something affected them personally, and they raised Cain. Perhaps after having done so, and they're now satisfied because they've reached agreement, they'll go back to just being who they were before. But we live in a society where that's the politics of it. You go about your business caring nothing about the rest of what is happening in the country. But when something falls in your garden, it becomes an issue. And it's amazing because some of the people who were affected by the vaccination mandate and who have lost their jobs were once rabid supporters of the Unity Labour Party administration. And to hear some of them criticize the government in the way in which they do now allows you to ask yourself, what was it about the politics of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and of the Unity Labour Party that did not allow them to see what they are now seeing? So had they not been personally affected, would they have ever seen that side or made those comments about the government and its leadership? Because now suddenly it is that they recognize that the government doesn't really care about them or about people. That's the conclusion of many of them who have lost their jobs. Many of them are now making references to whether he's a dictator or not a dictator or what have you or what have you. We say he's a benevolent dictator. We don't feel that there's anything wrong with saying so because we recognize, as happened in what we've just quoted, it's I. Nobody was brave enough. I was brave enough to start the international airport. I made it possible because of the international airport for the hotel to come. If we build it, they will come. So we build an airport, they come in. We didn't seem to think that we should have done the two simultaneously, but c'est la vie. Okay? But the old people have a saying about spending money that is not your own. Because in such circumstances, expenses do not matter. The money is not yours. Yeah? So when there's no cost to you personally and you're spending somebody else's money, it's fine. But Ames, now that he gets a 12-year sentence, is learning the consequences of utilizing other people's money. It wasn't his own. And so on the 30th of September 2022, 12 years later, Eyewitness News headlines Ames. And the headline is about the 12-year sentence that he gets. And we have to understand the judgment. The judge, Christopher Hare, described Ames, quote, as a slick salesman and thoroughly dishonest with it. Listen carefully to the words, and see just how you could relate to it and where else you could apply it. The judge, in handing down his judgment, called Ames a slick salesman and thoroughly dishonest with it. Yeah? He said that Harlequin's sales material was full of ambiguous, evidently false and misleading claims. Right? The judge said, and it's quoted by Eyewitness News, the prosecution was careful not to use the word before the jury. But the plain truth is that from January 2010, and we read you excerpts from March and July of 2010 a while ago, right? Read you excerpts from that. Read you excerpts from August 2010. It's our searchlight. Judge is saying, the plain truth is that from January 2010, the operation was a gigantic Ponzi scheme and could only be kept going by attracting new investors And you knew they would almost inevitably lose everything. That's what he's telling Ames. You knew that they would almost inevitably lose everything. These are the skilled investors and managers that Ralph was talking about. The judge is telling Ames, you knew that you could only keep your Ponzi scheme going by attracting new investors. And you knew they would almost inevitably lose everything. We and our collaboration, we and our insight didn't see that. We went along for the ride, people. Listen to this. Eyewitness News says, the judge said that Ames had no relevant experience entering the property business. Told court, you had sold garden furniture and double glazing and been in the loan business but were twice declared bankrupt. A fact you did not readily declare to those whose money you were after. You said you were a visionary and an entrepreneur, but you were not. You were a slick and plausible salesman and thoroughly dishonest with it. You are a menace to anybody unfortunate enough to do business with you. We did not do due diligence, dear friends, because we would have known this. We would have known this. Ames was a fly-by-night vagabundo. Fly-by-night. No relevant experience entering the property business. That is who we went to bed with. That is who we went about with. So the same way you say, I was brave enough and bold enough to build the airport. I is who get jobs for you down here at Bocaman Bay because I built an airport and so the hotels come. Say now, I did not do the due diligence. Say that. Say it. Say it. Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. Tell the nation that you did not do due diligence, otherwise you would have thought, since you also know what's happening in Russia. You read about it and you know. Because you know people in Russia, Lavrov is your friend. Putin might be your friend too, who knows? Well, all the people, you knew Gaddafi, you knew people, you're big in the world. You didn't know that there was a vagabond and rogue? When we call people here dishonest and malignant, minority wrong, possessive of a learned helplessness, we didn't know that Ames was one of them. We didn't know that he would have been honest, dishonest and malignant. After all these years, 12 years later, the judge is telling you, tell the man you are a menace to anybody unfortunate enough to do business with you. That includes you, comrade. That includes you. Because you were foolhardy enough to do business with this man. And the man never had any relevant experience entering the property business. The judge says in the passing his judgment, real issues with land ownership at resorts. There were real issues with land ownership at resorts. Marketed and sold more units at Bocaman Bay than the land could support, and made sales of properties where there was no land at all. All of that happened and we didn't know. Or did we? Did we? When we say that the country is ill, we're saying that this is the leadership that we had. That our government could, at the time of the project start and soft opening and what have you, thump its chest and boast about this platform, this mega project, and what impact it would have on the Vincentian economy. And we turn around and having a judge say to the man to his face that you had no relevant experience entering the property business. You're a menace to anybody unfortunate enough to do business with you. Your project had real issues with lot ownership. You marketed and sold more units at Bocamen Bay, which we should have known, than the land could support. And you made sales of properties where there was no land at all. This is in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You see, the judge says you are someone very keen to blame others for your own actions and misfortunes, and sought throughout the trial to blame others. But the only person responsible for the massive fraud and massive losses caused and the fact you are sitting in the dock awaiting a significant sentence is you. Yeah? You involve celebrity endorsements and very lavish entertainment indeed. And the generous levels of commission to agents played a part. But the failure of others to stop you cannot mitigate your culpability in the slightest. Most of the money went into the Harlequin black hole, but £6.1 million found its way to you and the members of your family. The case proved that in 2013, by the time the case started, Harlequin had sold 9,000 property units. 9,000 property units to investors, and only 200 were actually constructed. We were caught up in that mess. So, several thousand victims lost pensions and their life savings to the fraud. In the meantime, Ames and the family got money. So the point we're making to you, dear friends, is that we have gotten ourselves caught up in this. The article, Eyewitness News, ends on a very interesting note. Predicting major tourism development opportunities. He even secured the endorsement of politicians in the region, including the Prime Ministers of Barbados, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. End of quote. A great note for us to end this week's program. That we have been taken along that ride because we are so anxious, perhaps to impress the electorate beyond measure, to ensure that we are popular with the electorate, to ensure that we can prove ourselves masters of our own destiny, that we can find ourselves in a situation where, as Eyewitness News puts it here, predicting major tourism development opportunities. He even secured the endorsement of politicians in the region, including the Prime Ministers of Barbados, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Enough said. You'll be listening, dear friends, to another edition of Nice Radio's Callaloo presentation, Just Another Look. Just Another Look is an innovative, exciting, albeit decidedly provocative, and yes, certainly controversial socio-political analysis of issues of a local, regional, and international nature. Just Another Look is heard only on Nice Radio, first aired on Saturdays at 6 p.m., with repeat broadcasts on Sundays at 9 p.m. Catch us on the World Wide Web, www.niceradio.info. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. I am, of course, Keith Joseph.